Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. City Club is where civic-minded people come together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. I'm Greg McPherson, president of City Club. Members and guests are gathered today at the Sentinel Hotel, along with all of you listening on OPB radio or watching on Portland Community Media. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners enables us to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. Our media partner is Oregon Business Magazine. Our current Friday Forum sponsors are Eco Northwest, Chevron, Girding Edlin, Morel Inc., Northwest Natural, and Schwabe Williamson & Wyatt. Please join me in showing our appreciation for all of them. Next Wednesday, June 17, join us for an evening forum at the offices of wind turbine manufacturer Vestas on the history and future of Forest Park. Next week's Friday forum here at the Sentinel Hotel will discuss stories and barriers affecting the lives of people who are transgender in Oregon and beyond. You can learn more about City Club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. As always, we will be live tweeting today's program. You can follow along and join the conversation using the hashtag SOTC15. That's 15 spelled out. Later in the program, I will facilitate a Q&A session with County Chair Deborah Kafoury. Anyone in the live audience here may write a question on one of the index cards found at the center of your tables. Hold your cards up and City Club staff will collect them before or during the Q&A session. And now for the program. Today, Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kafoury will deliver her first State of the City address. Chair Kafoury will share with us what's working and what's not in our community and her vision for improving public health and safety, fighting homelessness and inequality, and investing in transportation and infrastructure. Deborah Kafoury learned early on that anyone can make a difference. She watched her mother open their Northeast Portland home to women escaping domestic violence and families with nowhere to sleep. They even turned their garage into one of the county's first collection sites for recycled glass. Her parents both held elective office. The early lessons Deborah gained from them shaped a deep commitment to public service. After graduating from Grant High School, Deborah earned a bachelor's degree in English at Whitman College. She returned to Portland to work on political campaigns and then to represent North and Northeast Portland in the Oregon House of Representatives, where her talents vaulted her quickly to become the House Minority Leader. Serving on the Multnomah County Commission, Deborah has worked closely with the City of Portland and state and federal officials to end homelessness and increase funding for early childhood education, after-school and mentoring efforts, and child abuse prevention. She also led the successful effort to find funding for reconstruction of the Sellwood Bridge, scheduled for completion next January. Described by newspaper editorial boards as smart, low-key, level-headed, and experienced, she was elected Multnomah County Chair a year ago. I will add as a personal note that I have known Deborah for most of her life, starting when she starred as a favorite teenage babysitter for my children, and later working closely with her as our House caucus leader after I was elected to the legislature. Sometimes familiarity tarnishes one's impression of a person. In Deborah's case, seeing her in action over many years only enhances my admiration. Please help me, join me in welcoming Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kafoury.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you to the City Club, and thank you, everyone who's here today. It is a pleasure to be here. I can't begin to tell you how excited, and yes, a little nervous I am about giving my first State of the County speech here at the City Club. The City Club plays an important role in our community, and no one knew that better than my mother, Gretchen Kafoury, who died 3 months ago at the age of 72. As a child, I remember noticing how much she did for others. She gave shelter to the homeless, provided a safe haven to women escaping domestic violence, and taught children in our public schools. She pushed for equal rights for people of color, women, and gays and lesbians. She gave of herself to make this community a better place for everyone. And because of that fierce advocacy for equal rights, she and a group of women and a couple of men came together in 1972 to fight and ultimately end 50 years of male dominance of this very same city club. She helped make the best parts of who I am and inspired me towards public and community service. And as I stand before you today, as chair of Multnomah County, my only wish is that she was here today as well. We sit here today at the center of two very different worlds in Multnomah County. In one world, the business climate is clearly improving. Personal income is up, and so are tax receipts. The structural fears for our economy have subsided, real estate values have rebounded, and there is a sense that we have turned a corner and that we can imagine what progress looks like. But in the other world, literally with the same geographic center, we have not just seen a recession, but a fundamental restructuring of society. Unemployment may be down, but so are the number of living wage jobs. And far too many people are just one setback, a job loss, a bad doctor's visit, a divorce, away from the edge. I promise I won't inundate you with statistics today, but for a moment, let me lay out the stark disparities between these two worlds. Of the roughly 760,000 people in Multnomah County, nearly 250,000 of them don't make enough money to make ends meet. Rent, food, and health care. In fact, 130,000 people, more than the entire population of Gresham, don't know where their next meal will come from. 1/3 of households in Multnomah County make less than $35,000 a year, and half the families in Multnomah County make less than $52,000 a year. Only 8,000 households make a combined income of $250,000 or more, which makes up a minuscule percentage of Multnomah County, but I'm guessing a much higher percentage of those in this room. White families in Portland have recouped the wages they lost during the recession, but no one else has. That means, on average, if you're Latino, there are 3 Portland neighborhoods where you can reasonably afford to buy a home. And if you're Black or Native American, 0. The growing inequality in our community is displacing longtime residents and changing the nature of our neighborhoods. And the weight of this crisis is being felt disproportionately by communities of color and women, many of them single mothers. I don't cite these figures to make anyone here feel guilty. I cite them because these are the facts that confront the Multnomah County Commission on a daily basis. When people come to Multnomah County looking for help, it's because other solutions have failed. They often have nowhere else to go. At Multnomah County, we're responsible for mental health. We help the elderly and disabled, survivors of domestic violence, homeless families, and those struggling with drug and alcohol addictions. The most important fact staring us in the face is that we will never have enough money to fix all of the problems in our community. That means that we are morally obligated to make some very difficult decisions about how to prioritize the dollars that we do have. And I'm proud to tell you today that Multnomah County is on solid financial footing, and because of that, we can make targeted investments that will change lives. Last month, I proposed a budget that invests in housing for families and veterans, support for kids so they can succeed at school, and in basic infrastructure that allows us to get to work, visit a doctor, or attend classes. And the budget I proposed is balanced for 3 years. with reserves fully funded at 10% of the general fund. Thank you. This is a result both of good decision-making over the past decade, which has kept us from overspending, and increased revenue as the overall economy has picked up. With that said, I have built my budget with 3 principles in mind. First, there is no guarantee that these dollars will continue. Until we have a better view of the long-term financial trajectory of the county, they should be viewed conservatively as one-time infusion. We must recognize that our costs will increase and our resources will fail to keep pace. The needs we serve will continue to grow, and the county faces a $7.6 million increase in general fund PERS costs next year. I make no judgment as I say that, but these growing costs and the uncertainty that we face mean we must fully fund our reserves, and if we can, we must do better. Second, we should spend these dollars wisely. There are investments that we can make now, like paying in advance for future construction or reducing disparities in our community, that can save us real money in the future. That will allow us to serve our mission better and stretch future dollars. Third, we can finally consider where needs are so great as to justify spending new dollars. And because we are on solid financial footing, it means we can now go farther in expanding our mission. I'm going to talk today about my budget, but first I want to tell you what Multnomah County has been doing for the past year. One of my first acts as chair was to establish a $15 minimum wage for all county employees. In fact, our Board of Commissioners was the first elected body in the state to do this. We know that the main driver of our economic health is from the ground up, not from the top down. It is shameful that someone can work 40 hours a week and still worry about basic necessities. Hard work should always pay off. That's what we tell our kids. But that's not true for everyone in our community, and it's ripping apart our social fabric. As the government entity charged with helping those in need, it is our duty to lead on policies that make things better for working families and to hold ourselves accountable to the message that we want to send to other employers. Oregonians need workplace policies that give them a fair shot. In the words of one of the most important coalitions working today to help everyday Oregonians get ahead and stay ahead. In a recent survey of our employees, we found that women were taking an average of 6 weeks of unpaid leave to stay home with a new baby. Given that women are increasingly the primary breadwinners in their families, just a few days without an income can really hurt. That's why I'm developing a plan to provide our employees, both men and women, with paid family leave so that all parents can spend those precious early days with their new baby. Multnomah County is also leading the way in the state and nationally on justice reinvestment, driving changes in our criminal justice system to lower crime and reduce recidivism. We recently received a $150,000 grant from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation to improve care for people facing mental health issues in our jails. This grant has been the result of years of hard work by Commissioner Judy Shiprack. We've also taken action to make sure that our children are safer by keeping e-cigarettes out of their hands. As a mother, I was shocked to find that my 9-year-old daughter could walk into a convenience store and buy an e-cigarette. Not that, of course, my darling Anna ever would. The vaping industry, like the tobacco industry and its marketing of regular cigarettes, targets our children. In a survey of more than 600 retail stores in the county, products are being sold with flavors like gummy bears and bubble gum meant to attract our youth. and they are regularly sold right next to the candy. School resource officers have seen students vaping, and even toddlers are getting their hands on them. Poison control calls are up locally and nationwide. This past December in New York, a 1-year-old boy died after drinking a liquid nicotine cartridge. On April 5th of this year, our county ordinance banning the sale of e-cigarettes to children took effect. We weren't going to wait for tragedy to strike another family. And I'm happy to tell you that 2 weeks ago, Governor Kate Brown signed legislation that made our e-cigarette regulation a statewide policy. Because I served 3 terms in the Oregon legislature, I know the importance of trying to address things on a statewide level, as well as on the local level. Another issue that we've been successful on this session is changing Oregon's senior property tax deferral to allow more low-income seniors to stay in their homes. We know that this is the kind of policy that pays off in the long run. It keeps seniors out of facilities and expensive care, and it lets them age in place and in comfort. And it pays for itself. Changes in the housing market were unfairly preventing some seniors from taking advantage of the program, and some program requirements were keeping seniors from downsizing. So we asked lawmakers to make some important changes to keep the program working, and I'm happy to say that Governor Brown has signed this bill as well. I'm an impatient person. It's something I certainly inherited from my mother, and I get tired of hearing excuses. You can trust that when I say I'm going to do something, I'll get it done. That's why I focused so much time and energy on replacing our downtown courthouse. It is seismically unsafe, and fixing it is my top capital priority. This critical project simply cannot be put off any longer. It can't be another project that people talk about for years and then nothing gets done. After 45 years and 29 studies that outline the hazards, action is way overdue. We must rebuild this courthouse now. I'm making a significant investment into this project this year because each dollar that we invest today means fewer dollars will have to bond, and that saves us money in future years. And it is with great pride that Multnomah County will complete the replacement of the Sellwood Bridge next year. Yay! This is another project that sat on the shelf for years until the bridge scored a sufficiency rating of 2 out of 100. Now it's 80% complete. The bridge project is on track to meet its diverse workforce goals, and it's Oregon's first green roads project. But what I really love about the Sellwood Bridge is that the only time my son Jacob's friends thought I was cool was when they saw me on TV driving across the deck of the bridge. We've made progress in the past year, but we have a lot more to do. And this is where our job gets really hard. The needs in our community are very, very real. I'm willing to bet that most of us in this room don't worry about our next meal or if there will be a roof over our heads tonight, but for far too many of our neighbors, these worries are real. This is what it means to be living on the edge. July Jackson could barely make the payments on her family's 2-bedroom apartment after the rent went up. Then she dropped a bottle of perfume down the toilet and spent all of her savings to hire a plumber. She got behind in her rent, and she got evicted. She and her 2 kids moved in with relatives, then into their car, and then into a shelter. She says the embarrassment and danger of homelessness are hardest on her kids. A plumbing problem for most of us would be an inconvenience. To this family, it was life-changing. When families are living paycheck to paycheck, it is nearly impossible to get back on track, much less get ahead. Shamira Thomas came to Oregon with her 3 little kids to escape an abuser who broke the bones in her face. But in Portland, she couldn't find an affordable apartment, and the family landed in a shelter. Each morning, her 2 boys arrive at their elementary school tired and hungry. School staff complain that her kids are dirty, she says. She and her 3-year-old daughter spend their day in their car, driving around or sleeping. All of us want to be safe, and we all want our kids to be safe. So does Shamira. And due to her brave acts, her children are more safe, but they won't be secure or stable without a permanent place to live. It is for these two mothers and their children and many others like them that I have spent much of my career working to end the daily tragedy of homelessness. It is heartbreaking work, but it is also invigorating when we make progress. A report published in 2013 revealed that in the decade prior, our work resulted in housing more than 12,000 homeless families. And after 12 months, we found that 84% of those families were still housed, 84%. One of the big policy changes we made is to go out into the community to find those families who needed our help, instead of waiting for them to come to us. We fund mobile housing advocates that find the families, place them into affordable apartments with the help of short-term rent assistance, completely bypassing the shelter system. I am proud of this success, and pausing to acknowledge our progress helps keep us going. But it certainly doesn't overshadow these two facts. Tonight, in Multnomah County, there will be 1,800 people sleeping on our streets. And last year, 3,000 school-aged children experienced homelessness. We've still got a lot of work to do. And the first step is to break down artificial jurisdictional boundaries between governments, their programs, and funding to fight homelessness. When a mother or father is looking for a safe, dry, warm place for their children to sleep, they don't care about jurisdictional boundaries, and neither do I. What do I mean by that? Well, it used to be that serving homeless families was the county's responsibility, and working with homeless individuals was the city of Portland's responsibility. Now, the cities of Portland and Gresham, together with Home Forward, Meyer Memorial Trust, our community partners, and the county, are taking a more coordinated approach, one that will help us reduce administrative costs, close gaps in services, and ultimately reduce homelessness. Together, we formed a partnership called A Home for Everyone, which has developed a cohesive plan that unites direct service providers, city, county, and federal resources. By aligning our goals and our resources, we have identified how to reduce by half the number of people without a home by 2017. And all of us are putting real money behind this effort. My budget includes $2 million in new ongoing county funding to help individuals and families find permanent housing. And for the first time ever, we are putting $5 million into a housing development fund to increase the number of affordable housing units in our county. These investments, together with those proposed in Portland Mayor Charlie Hale's budget, will allow us to meet our shared commitment to end veterans' homelessness and ensure that no family is ever turned away from emergency shelter. We will also expand the housing resources available to the hundreds of families and youth experiencing homelessness in our community every night. Let me talk about that first step, housing every homeless veteran by the end of 2015. When we adopted this plan in January, we identified 422 veterans who were homeless, either sleeping on our streets, in our shelters, or in temporary housing. Multnomah County, the City of Portland, and Home Forward combined significant local dollars with federal funding. And with the help of the VA and our nonprofit community partners, we are making real progress toward our goal. Between January and the end of April, we've been able to house 208 of those veterans. Recognizing even as we house veterans, new veterans become homeless. We estimate that between now and December, we will need to find housing for 61 veterans each month. I'm confident that we can meet our goal, but we do need continued support from the community, especially from rental property managers. Our biggest challenge is finding apartments for veterans in this tight rental market, so if you can help, I hope you will. With your support, we can ensure that no one who has served our country is left sleeping on our streets. I should mention that the county isn't just investing in veteran housing, we're also expanding services for veterans, an effort led by Commissioner Diane McKeel. The goal is to make it easier than ever for us to help veterans find a home or get a job. We even put veteran services in the name of the division in charge of that work for the very first time. In the same way that we determined what it would take to end veterans' homelessness, we've been able to model what it would take to significantly reduce homelessness overall. In order for us to reduce street and shelter homelessness by 50% in the next 2 years, we need to increase the number of people we house from the current level, which is about 3,000 a year, to 4,000 a year. At the same time, we need to reduce the rate at which people return to homelessness. The money we're investing is a great first step, but it is not enough. We need businesses to invest in this effort, and we need developers to step up. It's clear that this is not something that's going to go away on its own. And given what we know about the impact of the Great Recession on people of color and women, the findings from the latest point-in-time count shouldn't come as a surprise. While homelessness overall is relatively stable in our county, there has been a significant spike in homelessness among African Americans and women with children. The policies that are in place now, the way we've been doing business has worked just fine for most of the people in this room, but there are thousands of people who have been left behind, and for them, the American dream is nothing more than that, a dream. I don't want to tell my son Alexander that the reason he's going to be successful is the zip code he was born in. Across the county, I hear from people who are struggling to pay their rent or find affordable housing. And my county department heads tell me that a lack of affordable housing is impeding their work. Once we put a roof over someone's head, we can begin to build the foundation under their feet. A stable home allows us to more effectively tackle the other problems in a person's life, like a drug addiction, mental health issues, or helping them find and keep a job. A quick note before I move on, I want to take a moment to explain who us is. Multnomah County has incredibly committed employees, and I want to thank them personally for their service. Their hard work and dedication infuses thousands of lives with hope. But the county can't do this alone. The challenges people face can't be solved by one government. Fortunately, our community is filled with organizations and businesses that want to help. We partner with hundreds of organizations. That's hundreds of pairs of helping hands throughout the county, and I can't imagine one day at Multnomah County without them. These organizations have skills and perspectives that are vital to our work. For example, in this year's budget, I've set aside $1 million for a new behavioral health center designed to provide specialized care and support for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. This is a collaborative effort led by hospitals, local mental health providers, and city and county leaders to strengthen our crisis safety net. And because everyone we help ultimately wants the security of a job, we are doing our part to support small businesses. The county has decided to align its compensation exemption with that of the City of Portland. This allows small business owners to keep more of the money they earn, and I certainly hope that they choose to reinvest those dollars in growing their businesses. Many more jobs are needed and wanted by those we help. So we, the county, cities, and our community partners, as we address the very real and immediate needs of the homeless, I want to talk about preventing crisis in the first place. Prevention is the more humane and cost-effective way to support our families, and it starts with our youngest residents. The county doesn't run schools, but we can make sure that kids get to school ready to learn, and this effort starts at birth. We are continuing to fund the Multnomah County Healthy Birth Initiative, an effort focused solely on African American families. This community of women face higher rates of infant mortality and low birth weight. By working to improve the health of the mothers and fathers, we can improve the health of their children from birth. We know that when kids are hungry or sick, they have trouble learning and attending classes. That's why the county partners with school districts and community organizations to operate Sun Schools, which makes sure kids can get a meal and have a safe place to go after school is out. Amanda Wolf makes sure that the kids who attend her Sun School at Floyd Light Middle School get something healthy to eat. And that meal is a big deal to kids. Maybe they go home and eat again, she says, or maybe they don't. Families also get help with parenting classes, and they learn new ways to connect with their neighbors. These kinds of wraparound services provide support so that kids can be safe and healthy in and out of school. And culturally specific community partners like IRCO, which coordinates Sun Schools in 4 school districts, brings experiences and insights that the county doesn't have, and unique strategies to connect with and support youth and families. In my budget, we're funding new Sun Schools in the Park Rose, Gresham, and Reynolds school districts. We are also making sure our Sun Schools are equipped with more of the tools they need to serve children who are increasingly affected by trauma, poverty, and housing instability. We're expanding on-the-ground support in schools to help improve attendance and decrease suspensions and expulsions. We're investing in our early kindergarten transition program, where parents and children are invited into the classroom well before school starts. When a child starts school, it's a big deal in every family. But for those who face cultural or language barriers, we know that early intervention will lead to greater parental involvement and student success. I'm also proposing that we invest more in mental health services in our schools. Right now, only 1 in 4 schools in our county has a dedicated mental health consultant. One of those is at Oliver Elementary in the Centennial School District, where nearly 90% of the students live in poverty. Principal Laura Fendall says many of her kids begin school with undiagnosed behavioral, emotional, and learning disorders. Many more would benefit from a trained mental health professional to help them cope with the trauma that they may have experienced at home or in their neighborhoods. More than 60% of Laura's students are children of color, but Fendall says, where do you find a Spanish-speaking therapist? And when you do find one, there's a very long wait. That's exactly why I'm working with school districts to expand culturally specific mental health services in schools with a focus on Latino and African American students. We are also continuing our partnership with Work Systems, Inc., including funding for our shared summer works program. Under the leadership of Commissioner Loretta Smith, we've doubled the funding for this program. It puts hundreds of kids to work every summer. On the job, they learn skills ranging from the basics like which bus line to take to get to work, or the importance of showing up on time, to what kind of career they want that they're best suited for and how to get it. All of these policies are about prevention, but they're also about getting kids on the right track. We know that early trauma affects how kids grow. An abusive parent, an early brush with police, or growing up hungry. And we know that the work we do makes a difference. Investments early in life can keep our kids in school and out of trouble. And when a kid winds up in jail or in juvenile detention, we need to act quickly to avoid losing them to the criminal justice system. When a teenager steals a car, it's rarely the first time they've done something wrong. What if we had reached out to that child and his family at the first signs of trouble when he was 12? Well, I'm done asking what if. That's why I've included a new juvenile justice diversion effort in my proposed budget. This program will bring together community providers, the court system, school districts, and law enforcement to keep first-time offenders out of the justice system and improve their lives. By giving these kids the attention they need early on and helping them maintain the positive ties in their life, whether that's school, church, or family, we can help them stay out of trouble and achieve their full potential. This is an example of the very real and meaningful change we are working hard to deliver at Multnomah County. It's not easy, and it won't happen overnight, but we have the data to know that it works. A lot of what I've talked about today is basic fairness, ensuring that we are a community where everyone is given a chance for opportunity and a chance for success. But there are deep disparities in our community. Rates of illness and life expectancy are worse for people of color. And if we keep doing what we've been doing, these disparities will only get worse. I can't change our history, but I can promise you that I am committed to making our community more equitable and our county more inclusive. My 2016 budget includes $30.4 million in programs that aim to reduce racial and ethnic disparities. That's a 12% increase over last year. That includes investing in the Future Generations Collaborative, which empowers urban Native American elders to lead our health department's efforts to support healthier births. My budget also includes training for 25 new community health workers for the African immigrant community and another $500,000 for culturally responsive case management. I want to back up for a second and talk about how I learned about the needs of the African immigrant community, because it shows how we're changing the way the county serves our increasingly diverse population. When Ebola broke out in Western Africa last year, county staff started hearing stories about discrimination against Liberian immigrants. Multnomah County had been tracking Ebola since early summer, but I didn't expect that so many African families living here would suffer because of the Ebola outbreak. I wanted to help, so I asked to meet with community leaders at Africa House in Northeast Portland. The stories that I heard were shocking. People who live here and work here were being shunned. Others were afraid to go to the doctor because their neighbors might think they had Ebola. Understanding these experiences led us to change the way we manage the Ebola threat, and it still informs my work with the community. When I was developing my budget, I held a series of community conversations. The goal was to understand what every segment of our community was experiencing and what they wanted us to invest in. One of those meetings was held at the Asian Health and Service Center in Southeast Portland, which provides healthcare, preschool, and lunches for seniors. These lunches are really important. They're made through partnerships with local restaurants so that when seniors show up to socialize, the food they have to eat is familiar and satisfying. We've learned that there really isn't a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to hunger. That's why I'm expanding funding for these kinds of culturally specific meal programs in my budget. By looking at every aspect of our services, we can start to address the deep disparities in our community, and we're not stopping there. I'm proposing bold action to reduce diesel emissions, both as a matter of public health, but also one of environmental justice. When it comes to the nation's worst diesel pollution, Oregon ranks 6th. Among counties, Multnomah County is the 4th worst. We're worse than Los Angeles. Lead, formaldehyde, and soot in diesel can trigger asthma attacks and have been linked to preterm delivery and low birth weight. Adults breathing diesel over time face greater risks of cancer, heart disease, and stroke. And we find concentrations of diesel emissions 2 to 3 times higher in communities where people of color live. We've already retrofitted all our county-owned equipment, Now we're seeking out other efficiencies in county policies that can further this goal and working with others for a statewide solution. Carbon emissions are down 14% from 1990, while our population and workforce has grown. This shows that we can decrease emissions and grow our economy. And in collaboration with the City of Portland, we are updating our climate action plan, infusing Multnomah County values into the plan. In addition to talking about taking the bus or riding your bike, we're also talking about the vulnerable populations that we serve. The elderly, the homeless, and communities of color will be most impacted by climate change. So making our communities climate resilient is a vital part of doing our job. I want to thank Commissioner Jules Bailey for his leadership on this issue. And for his work on our property-assessed clean energy program, which encourages owners of commercial property to improve energy efficiency by offering financing through the property tax system. Innovative programs like these save businesses money and ultimately reduce the cost of climate change, costs that we all bear. Every challenge we encounter at the county is a tough one. There are similarities to why families fall into crisis: a job loss, illness, abuse, racism, or the grip of addiction, but each story is unique and deeply personal. So we listen, offer a helping hand, and chart a path forward. Seeing our community partners and our county employees move families from crisis to stability is truly inspiring. Isora Osencio is one of those Multnomah County employees. She brings the experience of being helped by the county as a young mother to her work. She was 15 when she became a mom. Living on her own during high school while raising her son, Isora credits county employees to her success. She says that a Multnomah County nurse, a school resource officer, and a gang prevention outreach worker saw only her potential. And because of their influence, she graduated from high school and went on to Portland State University. She also developed a mentor program on teen pregnancy prevention, volunteered at the county health department, and mentored other Latinas on their educational goals. Now, Isara works for our Human Services Department and Community Engagement. She brings people together. She helps those in need. Her perspective and her experiences make the county a better place. And she makes a difference in the lives of others, just like that nurse did for her years ago. As the media and stock market, and most of us in this room, move on from the Great Recession, there are still too many of us who haven't found a job, are struggling to pay for housing, and are losing hope. It makes me think that the Great Recession was really a great restructuring that left our community more divided and unjust than before. I don't have an economics degree or a stack of studies to prove this point, but I do have the experience of thousands of families that Multnomah County helps, families that are still on the edge. I think those experiences raise a moral question. What kind of community do we want to be? And that's where I find hope. Because what we love about this county is our sense of community. I believe that when challenged, our community will respond. When given a choice of options, we will choose to become more inclusive, more caring, and more fair. Many of the questions that have been raised here today about income and outcome disparities, about who we serve and how we see community are not inherently comfortable. And I see that as an overwhelmingly good thing. If we're going to advance the cause of real community and do our best to change real people's lives, then we must not fail to ask those uncomfortable questions, and we must have the courage to re-examine how we do things along the way. In the end, what gives me hope is not just the improved financial footing we now find beneath us, but the continued unfolding revelation that this place really is special. And community leadership is what defines that. To be sure, we have natural advantages over many other parts of the country. We have a great climate and gorgeous mountains. But what makes Multnomah County special is people like you. People who care enough about their community to participate in the democratic process. And the people all over this county who frankly refuse to let us be anything less than great. One of those people is here today, my husband, Nick. As you may have read in the Portland Tribune, he cooks dinner every night at our house. He puts the kids to bed when I'm working late, and especially this year has been my rock. My mom loved Multnomah County, and she was deeply proud to be a part of this community. And being here today, surrounded by my colleagues and my coworkers from around the county, I have never been more proud to be a part of that legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah, for giving us a better understanding of the challenges faced by our county government. Now we will take questions from the audience. Asking questions at the City Club microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, which is open to everyone. Before asking your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member, and please ask one question and ask it as succinctly as possible. If I flash the dreaded City Club question mark, please wrap up promptly. Anyone here in the audience may ask a question by writing it on an index card and holding it up for staff to collect. So I'll kick off the questions with this. The Willamette River bridges are a Multnomah County responsibility, even though much of their traffic is for residents of Washington County or, like me, Clackamas County. In fact, in a rather ungrateful move several years ago, Clackamas County residents rejected the idea that they should pay a little registration fee to pay for a portion of the Sellwood Bridge improvements. Should the bridges be shifted to another jurisdiction so the costs are more broadly shared?
I think this is this Portland City Club's favorite question, because every time I come before you, I get the same exact question. I would love it if other counties and other communities in the state of Oregon wanted to help pay for our bridges, but I just don't see at this point that that's going to be a viable option. I do know that when there is a crisis, people respond, and when the Sellwood Bridge scored a rating of 2 on the scale of 100, and I went to the Oregon legislature and asked them for support, they responded. They gave us $30 million, even though the Sellwood Bridge is purely a local bridge. They give us $30 million and the ability to impose a vehicle registration fee to pay for the reconstruction of the bridge. I do believe strongly that it is ultimately the responsibility of Multnomah County, because the bridges are in our jurisdiction. And I know that thanks to the help of Commissioner Jules Bailey, in our budget that's going to be voted on next week, we will have $1.5 million to start the feasibility study on replacing or retrofitting the Burnside Bridge, which is the lifeline bridge for safety vehicles in case of an emergency.
Very good. Now, a question from the microphone.
Kurt Webering, member. I was looking at the study of least affordable in housing for the country, and Portland, unfortunately, is number 10. And that's comparing what income is to what you have to pay for rent or a house. So you're right, affordable housing is a big problem. Let me ask you about inclusionary zoning. Should we require people and builders who are developing housing to have a portion of that set aside long-term for low-income people?
I favor inclusionary zoning, and that's why Commissioner Dan Saltzman and I went to Salem earlier in the year to testify in favor of a bill to allow communities to use this potentially as a tool. I know it's not a silver bullet, and that's what I keep hearing. It's not a silver bullet, but I do believe that used responsibly, it can be a very effective tool to help create more affordable housing in our community. And I would urge all of you who support this measure to call your state senator today, because I know that the bill needs to be voted out of the Senate soon.
Felisa Hagan, City Club member. For your entire career, you've been an advocate for women and women's rights. As Multnomah County Chair, can you point to some of the critical issues you've talked about today around poverty and women and homelessness and women, a lot of the stories you gave as examples? I'd like to hear 2 or 3 things that you feel most proud of that you've worked on thus far as chair for low-income and women advocacy, both at the county, but as well as your work in the legislature.
Wow, where do I start? Probably I would say that the issues that I'm most proud of, one of them was when I was in the Oregon legislature, I passed the Parents as Scholars bill, which allowed, and it's mostly women, single mothers with children on welfare, to go back to school and get an education while they're maintaining their TANF benefits so that they can get a job that pays more than minimum wage when they graduate. I'm really proud of the work we've done at Multnomah County to raise the lowest wage to $15 minimum wage, because most of those are also women in Multnomah County, and so raising the wages of those families goes right back into the community and helps those families stay on strong financial footing. I'm really looking forward to working with my colleagues to provide paid family leave for the parents at Multnomah County, because I do believe that those first few weeks with a newborn are vital, and if parents are feeling the tension between having to go back to work too early because they need that paycheck, it creates undue stress at a time when you really want that family to be bonding.
My name is Steve Weiss, and I'm a member of the City Club. I don't know if you can answer this question, but I think it needs to be asked. Those of us who are watching the behavior of the Congress of the United States are very concerned about the maintenance of federal social safety net programs. Bills are currently pending in Congress or may be introduced that would harm Social Security, harm Medicare, harm Medicaid, harm housing subsidy programs, and the list is almost endless. Nobody knows at this point what the leadership of the Congress is capable of passing and what they aren't, and whether they can override presidential vetoes. My question is simply, what happens if the worst happens, and how can the county deal with that?
Thanks for that easy question, Steve. I mean, I think we've seen, at least in my adult lifetime, a continued disinvestment by the federal government. That's one of the reasons that we're struggling with so many people experiencing homeless in our community, because the federal government has not kept up its vigilance in supporting people with housing. So, you know, I could spend a lot of time, I guess, thinking about what's coming in the future. But for families today, right now, a lot of them, too many of them are experiencing poverty, abuse, trauma. And so I just feel like my job is to work with the families that we have today to ensure that the kids that we have in our community have a better life than their parents.
I'm going to ask a question from the index cards. You did not mention raising taxes to fund more of your priority projects. Would a tax increase be a good thing to discuss publicly?
We are on really, did you hear the part about the solid financial footing? We have, for this year's budget, I had an additional $9 million of ongoing dollars and $45 million of one-time only. I think that probably it's not the right time to be talking about tax increases when we have a lot of money. It's more important that you put the pressure on us, you as a community put the pressure on us as elected officials to spend the dollars that we have wisely and then see if we're doing a good job. And if you feel that there is additional needs that aren't being served, then come back and ask us to raise taxes. I just haven't had a lot of people knocking at my door asking me for a tax increase right now. Maybe in the future.
Hello, Amanda Shore, City Club member. I do a lot of work in North Portland and East Portland, and I've noticed that a lot of the sidewalks and crosswalks are non-existent or poorly placed or end suddenly in the road. And I was wondering what was being done to make sure that all of our communities are walkable and safe.
Great question. And I'm not one of those politicians who likes to point my fingers in other directions. I will say a lot of people don't understand the county's role and the city's role. The county is responsible for human services, while the cities are responsible for the physical infrastructure. That being said, we do value the importance of crosswalks and sidewalks in our community and have spent, as Commissioner Diane McKeel can tell you, considerable time and effort developing plans, especially in East County, to ensure that there are safe routes to schools, that there are flashing lights to make sure that kids are safe when they're crossing the street to go to school. There's a lot more work to be done, and we will work in partnership with the cities of Portland and Gresham to ensure that this happens.
Bill Dickey, City Club member. One, I greatly appreciate you mentioning Gretchen Kafoury today. I loved her, great leader, wonderful mom. One of the things I've been noticing in my driving around town is the green crosses showing up everywhere, and I assume that comes with the legalization of marijuana. And I wonder how that affects the county. Does the county get any revenue from that? And is that going to burden the county more with addiction-related issues and so on and so forth?
I don't think we have all the answers yet to how the legalization of marijuana is going to impact our communities locally. I know that the legislature is having a difficult time even getting bills out of committee at the state level. But it becomes legal on July 1st. Yes, it's going to change things. It's going to change things from a public safety point of view. It's going to change things from a healthcare perspective. And it's going to change things from an employer perspective. We don't have good testing to see whether people are under the influence when they come to work. Our health department is working right now on a public health campaign to let people know that even while it is legal and safe for people to use in the privacy of their own homes, it's not the best thing for children, and we shouldn't, what the laws are to try to help people to explain it to the community. But I think that this is an area that has a lot more work needs to be done.
Hi, my name is Vandana Shrestha. I'm a City Club member. And I just want to congratulate Multnomah County and you for joining the Age-Friendly Network recently. We're really excited that Multnomah County, along with City of Portland, is part of this growing movement. And I know that there's been a lot of great work that the county staff have been doing in terms of listening to community members about what the needs are of the older adults. Are there any particular things that you hope to see happen in the next coming years in terms of Multnomah County's continued commitment to age friendliness?
Yes, definitely. I mentioned in my speech that we're investing additional dollars in the senior lunches that are served at senior centers around our community. We're also developing a plan, both along with the climate action plan, but also around emergency preparation, because we know that seniors who are living in their homes are going to be the most affected by climate change and potential emergencies, but are possibly the least likely to be able to receive help. So we're doing planning for those as well. But I'm always happy to hear other suggestions. I'm proud to be age-friendly certified in my office, and I know that Multnomah County spends a lot of time with that.
We'll take another question from an index card. Will the emergency family shelter in East County become year-round?
Yes, that's in our budget. We plan to have emergency shelter for families to be year-round, which is going to coincide with the City of Portland's having their women's shelter year-round. The plan that we've developed through A Home for Everyone has many prongs because we know that there's not just one action we need to take to reduce homelessness. While we're investing money to create new affordable housing units, those aren't going to come online tomorrow, and it's not okay for people to be sleeping on our streets at night. So if we do need to increase the number of emergency shelter beds that we have in our community.
Do we have one more question from the microphone? Yeah.
Yes, hi, I'm Leslie Zenner, and I am a City Club member. This is a question from one of the tables. The question is, with all the recent gang violence that seems to be prominent in the cities, are there any, does Kent have any plans for unemployment programs to help maybe busy some of these young people to something productive? Thank you.
Thank you. Why, yes. In this budget that's going to be voted on next week, thanks to the great work of Commissioner Loretta Smith, we are doubling the number of placements we have for youth to do the Summer Works program, which is really vitally important to give these kids who otherwise would be hanging out with nothing to do, give them not just a place to show up to, but work skills that will help them get jobs in the future. It's a wonderful program. Now my kids are looking at me like, does that mean I have to go get a job too? Yes, you do.
Okay. Hi, Commissioner. Just curious, working at a law firm downtown about the county courthouse. Just curious about where the process is at. I know it's early days, but I thought I saw in the budget money for a search, and I'm just wondering where, is it going to be rebuilt or moved, and what the timeline is right now?
Great, I can talk about my favorite capital project. We are going to be rebuilding the downtown courthouse. Last month, or April, the commissioners and I voted for a site. It's going to be at the west end of the Hawthorne Bridge. And no, we are not going to be building right on top of the VQ. We're not putting the VQ out of business. We love the VQ. We love Denny King. So if all goes according to plan, we will be breaking ground in 2017, and a new courthouse will stand at that location and open in April of 2020.
Our final question is from an index card. The question is, Mom, when are you going to be home for dinner?
Who put that in there?
We've run out of broadcast time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for the day. And as we close, please join me in offering our sincere thanks to Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kafoury. We are adjourned.